Okay, I want to share this video, Rapture 2021, the Great Eighth Day, the final countdown. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save you almost 5 hours. It's 4 hours and 57 minutes long, and I'm going to cut it down for you. Now what he could have done was he repeats himself so much that he could have done in 1 hour his teaching. But you can tell he's very excited, the brother is very excited about what God is revealing to him. And so I'm just going to share snippets of it, and then we're going to get to the graph, and we'll talk about the graph. Did you know that there were more, our generation has been totally focused on the tetrad, the 4 blood moons that happened in 2014, but there were 2 other times where there were tetrads, 4 blood moons on the Passover and Tabernacles. Back in 1949, when Israel became a state, and it was actually 1949 because he shows the UN documents, it was at 1947, and again in 1964. And he shows you the events. There are specific events that happened during these blood tetrads. So, okay, let's listen to what he says here. This part is really good.
Tell the rest of the story. What if there have been other blood moons since Israel stood up as a nation in 1949? And each of these blood moons has been telling us a story and making the end of days and marking the end of days, and no one has been paying attention. Because what I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, these are the blood moon tetrads from 2014 to 2015. But there was blood moon tetrads in 1949 and 1950. There was also blood moon tetrads in 1967 in 1968. What if we lined up all the blood moons from 1949, including in 1967 and 68, and the ones in 1950, and include these and line them all up next to each other? What if, brothers and sisters, all the blood moons have been marking the end of days and no one has been truly paying attention to the blood moons? All that we have taught about is absolutely correct, brothers and sisters. We weren't wrong about the timeline, and we're going to show that. We will now go through this in much greater detail and show the whole world how this not only is correct, but it leads us to the final countdown of the escape of the bride. Brothers and sisters, wait until you see the revelation that we have been given. Wait until you see how all the blood moons since 1949, 1950, 1967, 1968, 2014 and 2015, wait until you see how they've all been telling God's true story for the end of days. And so what I'd like to do, brothers and sisters, move back over to this spreadsheet real quick. And in a few minutes, I'm going to get into the new stuff. I just want to review a few more things first. And how all of this began, after we made our last video last week, I just prayed about it and continued in prayer for a long time. For almost 2 days straight, I was praying and praying. And then I heard a voice. It wasn't audible, but I heard it in my head. And the voice said, I have already showed you. You have already taught this. And I looked around the room like I honestly, thought somebody else was in the room with me. And I said, Lord, are you speaking to me? And then I heard the voice say, I have already showed you. You've already taught this. And then the voice said to me, go and see. And so I was led back to this whole April the 4th teaching because I knew in my heart that there was something here about the April the 4th timeline. We just needed to dig into it a little bit further.
So then he goes on to show the events of what's happening with these blood moons and how you can begin to count your calendar from Daniel 9 and 2.
The end of the 70 years of tabernacles.
Where God says that he is going to determine 70 weeks is determined upon Israel, 70 weeks upon Jerusalem, and 70 weeks determined upon the people. There are 2 different 70-week timelines here. And remember when in Daniel he predicted the very year that Christ would be crucified? So they should have been there waiting. They should not have missed their visitation. But because they missed their visitation, their house was left to them desolate, and he said he would not return it again until they cried out to him. So let's hope that we don't miss the next visitation, because he is now pointing to the very year that the Lord is going to come again for his bride, the bride snatch, where he steals his bride away. So, all right, so this was the first blood moon, 1949 and 1950, talking about when Israel became a nation. Then the second one was here in 1967 and 1968. And then the last one was 2014. And this was the 2014 one was the countdown to the final 14 years. There was the 7 years of tribulation upon the bride, and then the final tribulation, which is going to go upon the world and the apostate church. Hopefully they'll repent. But anyway, this was fascinating, and he brings out wonderful scriptures about the third day. This was pointing to the third day when Christ was at the wedding feast in Cana. It was on the third day. But it was, and he said, his hour is not yet come. That was because he wasn't coming until the 8th day, which is over here, Tabernacles. So he draws these little lines here, and he shows you the timeline. When the 70 years was on Jerusalem, ended March 10th, 2020, and that's when Israel has not been able to form a government. They're no longer under Hebrew rule. They're mixed. They now have the Arabs in there. And then the one on the people, the 70 weeks on the people comes over here and ends over here on the 8th day of Tabernacles this year. So we are right on it. We need to be looking every day for the Lord to come. Every day he's coming. And then he also includes lots of cool scriptures. So it was a wonderful study. If you have the time, I would sit through it. But if you don't have the time, now you know, be looking. Jesus is right around the corner. He's coming to get his bride. He's coming for us. So that's wonderful. So God bless you all. I'll put the link in the description box.